Hi, it's Stuart here for a sort of no particular orders set of Infinity starter tips for new players. These are just sort of some general off the top of my head remarks. I thought were kind of important that might help new players who are just getting into the game. Um, so my number one might seem pretty obvious to anybody who's played Infinity, but hug cover, okay? Whenever you can move between your starting position and where you actually want to fire from well engaged in cover, do it. Okay, there's almost no case that I can think of where you would want to move back unless it was for a range band issue or something like that. Generally, you're going to want to keep in cover because it's going to give you that -3 when you're being shot at and +3 armor, which for those lighter troops is huge. The next thing, and this was something that I learned not super recently, is when you have placed an order on a troop, you can always measure its zone of control, which is the 8 inches from the edge of its base. Okay, this is can be important for when you're trying to measure ranges, movement, stuff like that. Infinity is fairly not or fairly harsh with pre-measuring, so having access to being able to measure before you've made a decision on what you're going to do can be quite important, especially with stuff like shotguns, where that 8 inches is going to tell you, am I in that +6 range band or am I out, without actually having to declare who you're shooting at. So that's a really cool thing that I just learned. And sort of coming off of that, another really cool thing um, that our group fairly recently found out was when you shoot something with a template, the target reacts, right? Let's just say that the other thing is sort of slightly enough behind the corner of a building that it can't see the initial firing point. It doesn't get to react. So no matter what the guy that was being shot with the, say, missile launcher does, the other guy who was hit with the splash damage still takes those hits and doesn't get to react to them because he's just standing there. And that's awesome. It can massively increase the effectiveness of lots of guns like shotguns and missile launchers, flamethrowers, and the like. Next is the prone skill. Prone is just a fantastic skill. Because of how prone works, it takes effect at the beginning of the movement that you declare it. So if you are behind a small wall, like the lip on one of these buildings behind me, for example, you start the move the size of your base, which means that anything on the ground or a lower building actually can't shoot you when you move. They can't even arrow with a BS attack as you go down. They don't get to shoot you. So when you've got, maybe a sniper up there who's taking a lot of fire and you need to reposition him, don't just walk him across. Prone, you might take one more order to get him into a firing position, but you're not risking any incoming fire, and that is great. The next thing I'm going to talk about is smoke grenades. Smoke dodge, I love to use it. Dwayne hates it when I use it. It is just a fantastic skill for basically putting down moving cover as your troops advance. If there is a time, perhaps, when you need to protect additional assets, don't be afraid to throw the smoke grenade so that it covers up other troops. Right? You can throw it in front of you as long as it is fully occluding that incoming attack. The throwing or the roll becomes a face-to-face roll with everything that the smoke is basically interfering with. So you can sort of throw it maybe a little off center um, to get other troops into the smoke that maybe you want to do other things with, but you're worried that they're going to get shot up. So it's just something to think about, basically rolling that into um, your smoke dodge. Killing two birds with one stone basically is going to increase your order efficiency. The next thing is uh, it can be easy to get caught up in like a bloodlust or like whatever you want to call it, where you're just like, I gotta kill that thing. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it is enough to just ignore them. Most missions in Infinity, whether you're playing ITS or another homebrew system, are going to be focused on objectives, either controlling specific points in the field or zones of control. Focus on that, okay? You're not necessarily going to win it by just going on a killing rampage, unless that rampage is going to end up, putting him into retreat or something like that. You don't have to bother with that. Infinity is not a game that's won with brute force. It is one with tactical acumen, forethought, and strategy. My last point is a little sticking point, I guess, is you should always be aware of nesting skills. What is a nesting skill? That's basically when one skill in your army, like say remote presence, has an additional skill wrapped in it. So remote presence has the uh, has courage, I believe, in it, and it is important to know what all of those do. Um, so it's really helpful when you're building your list to get onto the Infinity Wiki and just go through all your skills. Um, it can be kind of overwhelming when you're just staring at the rule book and it's just page after page after page. Well, these very complicated rules. It can be quite helpful to just go in and be like, okay, this is what I want to field. These are all their skills. These are all the nesting skills. This is what everything does, and then come to the table with a bit more of a cohesive idea of what you're actually bringing to bear. So that is my kind of off the cuff um, plan or helpful tips for new players. I hope that that was helpful. Please, if you like the video, like it and give us a subscription so you can get more of our great content.